Hello, students. This is the video lecture that I'm making about radio. This is the new stuff about radio. I'm making this video in February of 2026. Might use it for a couple of semesters, but it's current as of right now. First up, I'm going to share some information with you. This is from a company called Edison Research. This is from the third quarter of 2025. That's the most recent data that I could get from Edison Research. And there's a lot of information here. Let me break it down for you. When people are listening to ad supported audio, that means listening to something other than your own music. When you're not listening to your own vinyl collection or cassette tapes or your own CDs, when you're actually listening to like a stream or radio, ad supported audio, that's what this is measuring right now. AM, FM dominates that. In an average hour, ad supported audio, 38 or 38 and a half minutes is coming from AM, FM radio. Podcasts take up a little more than 12 minutes. And then you got a chunk of time from Spotify and then Pandora. Pandora and Spotify are pretty much equal. And then we got Sirius XM satellite radio taking up a little bit as well. Where do people listen to the radio? This is not really a surprise, but 65% of the listening happens outside of the home. A little over a third takes place at home. So, by contrast, and this is the kind of thing that I might want to put on a quiz question. By contrast, when people are listening to streaming, not traditional terrestrial over the air broadcasting, when people are listening to streaming, 63% of the time it's at home, 37% of the time it's away from home, maybe walking, maybe at the gym, maybe in the car. But basically, if you want to think in broad trends, people listen to the radio in the car, but when they're at home, they might be listening to streaming. Concentrated ownership. You don't have to worry about this. I know it's a lot of details, but these are the companies. I just wanted you to maybe know the names. iHeartMedia has almost 900 radio stations, let's say, operating in more than 150 markets. Now we have Cumulus Media. They have more than 80 markets. Odyssey, I think that's how you say it, Odyssey, not Audacity. Audacity is a software platform, but Odyssey is big. And then Town Square Media is also very big. Country is the number one format for radio stations. I stress again, country is the number one format for radio stations. If you're just looking at how many radio stations belong to country, it's more than anything else. News talk is also very popular as well. News talk is very, very big, specifically on the AM band. Religious Christian stations, they're right up there as well. I think, maybe in a year or two, when I do the next one of these video lectures, religious Christian stations will be the most popular radio format. And then when you lump all types of Spanish language stations together, there are different types of Spanish language stations. But when you lump them together, that's also a big, big popular format. But country is number one. National Public Radio was founded in 1970, has about 1,000 members. I'm just approximate here. It is often criticized of leaning to the left. Public radio stations do not accept advertising. They do not accept advertising for the over-the-air programming. They are not allowed to accept advertising. That is one of the defining characteristics of public radio. Now, at the time of this recording, early 2026, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is about to shut down because the current administration has cut the funding so dramatically. I do not believe that is going to be the end of public radio stations. They are going to still survive, probably have to go to nonprofit organizations or beg for their members to donate even more money, but I don't think they're going to go away. I hope they don't go away. They've oftentimes been criticized for being too left or too liberal in their political perspective, which was why the current administration is attacking them. I do not believe this to be the case. I think airing both sides of an issue, being pretty neutral or pretty objective in your coverage doesn't mean you're left. If you expose negative or damaging information about people that are currently in power, I don't think that is done for political purposes. That's oftentimes just done for factual purposes. Most talk radio stations on AM is dominated by talk because FM works better for music, but AM works good for talk. Most talk stations on AM radio are extremely, extremely conservative. Here is a list of, and it may not be an exact list, okay? None of this might be exact, but this is, I think, pretty accurate and fairly representative. The most popular radio stations when it comes to talk radio stations definitely are conservative. If you had to put them on the political spectrum here, we have the Sean Hannity show, the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show. I actually do listen to both of these. I don't agree with what they're saying, but I just nonetheless want to hear what they are saying. And then number 7 here, if you've never heard Coast to Coast, I highly, highly recommend that. If you want to hear people talk about conspiracy theories, space aliens, the Yeti, hollow Earth theory, all that kind of stuff, Coast to Coast AM is pretty interesting. Now I'm going to talk about radio ratings. Where the heck do radio ratings come from anyway? This overlaps significantly with television ratings. There is something called the PPM, the Portable People Meter. Nielsen is the main company that generates radio ratings for the industry right now. They rely on this thing called the PPM. It identifies every radio station a person is exposed to, not listen. You don't have to be actively listening. You don't even have to enjoy it. If you are exposed to it, it picks up a silent digital signal that has been embedded into the radio signal. And then you take a sample group of listeners in a particular market, could be a couple of hundred. I think it's maybe only 2,000 in San Diego. People walk around with this device. I used to say it's the size of a pager, but I don't even think most students know what a pager is. It's smaller than a smartphone. Let's say that. A little electronic device you wear on your person, or you can put it in your purse, or you can put it on your belt. Now, it does not work like Shazam. Shazam, you know what that is. You hear a song at a club, you're like, oh, I want to know what this is. Shazam hears it, and then we'll identify the song. The PPM doesn't work that way. There is actually a digital signal that a commercial radio station puts in their programming that the human ear doesn't hear it, but this device will pick it up. And if you're exposed to it, if it's loud enough for your device, say a PPM, if it's loud enough for the PPM to pick it up, you're going to be counted as part of the audience. So say I was wearing a PPM and I go into a store at the mall, Hot Topic, they still have those. They're playing some horrible radio station I would never listen to. I'm now suddenly calculated as being part of the audience. Definitions. A rating is a simple percentage. When you talk about radio, it is a percentage of people listening to the radio station taken from the entire population. A rating is from the entire population. A share, I know I've gone over this before. A share is the number of people listening, but you're only using people who are actively listening to radio at a given time period. That's what a difference between a share and a rating is. Rating is just the raw number. Share, we've taken out people who are not listening to the radio. As an example, what would be the rating for channel 2? 3 out of 10 would be 30%, a rating of 30. 3 out of 10 is 30%, so you have a rating of 30. Now, the share, same graphic, exactly the same graphic. If you remove the homes, in this example, the homes are not listening to radio. If you remove the homes, now you're only talking about 6 homes. Half of them are listening to channel 2. That would be a share of 50. That would be astronomical. No one gets a 50 share on radio, but that would be the difference between ratings and share. AQH rating. Radio stations measure the audience in 15-minute chunks. I don't know why they do this. They just do. It's called the average quarter hour. So you take the number of people who are listening or the percentage of people listening at a 15-minute interval, and you call that your AQH rating. This is the thing you need to know. AQH share. When radio stations report their audience metrics, they almost always use AQH share. AQH share is the dominant metric for the radio industry. Again, I don't know where it comes from, but that's just what it is. Now, here's some examples. Current as of when I'm recording this, okay? I looked at New York, biggest city, biggest urban area in the United States. It is the #1 radio market. We have October 2025, November, December. Then we have the holiday period. They carve out a couple of weeks there. And you can see this particular station had a 12.5. That is a 12.5 AQH share. And if you just look at the middle column there of owners, you could see the conglomerates that I was talking about. iHeartMedia has 2 of the top stations. Odyssey has 2 of the top stations as well. Now, what is going on in San Diego? The station KYXY, Adult Contemporary. I don't listen to that station. Look at the ratings jump they had when they probably played all Christmas music. When stations go to all Christmas music, sometimes the industry jargon might say flip to Christmas. I flipped to Christmas, meaning I changed the format for a month or something like that. They have a 13 AQH share. And then we have KPBS. That's pretty popular right here. And then local media San Diego. This is one of the stations that's down broadcasting out of Tijuana. At this point in the video lecture, I'm going to play an excerpt from an actual radio station. In addition to being a professor here at San Diego State University, I also host a radio show that airs in Eunice, Louisiana. This is an over-the-air FM station. It's not online. It's not on demand. There's no podcast, no streaming. If you want to listen to my radio station, you got to be within like 20 miles of Eunice, Louisiana. This is an opportunity that fell into my lap. I have great, great fun doing it. I'm going to play a clip from the radio show. This is a segment that aired over the air Saturday, February 21st, because I host the Saturday Cajun Music Show. Cajun music is a very specific type of music that pretty much only gets radio airplay in Southern Louisiana, Cajun music. Okay. This is a break that I did. I'm going to play the whole break where I talk about public interest. And it is a repeat of what I said in the last video lecture. I know. Please forgive me. I'm repeating myself. That's a good tool of teaching. 1055 KEUN, en français, 10, zank, zank, vous êtes à l'écoute, la Saturday Cajun Music Show. Mes amis, today is February 21st, 2026. I'm going to share some information with you. You know how much I love radio history. I'm going to share some information with you, something that happened 99 years ago on February 23rd, 1927. President Calvin Coolidge signed the Federal Radio Act. And this little bit of information is so classic, it's so memorable, it's so important, it's going to be an entry in Professor Arsenault's Radio History. The technology to transmit sound over the airwaves has existed for more than 100 years. And despite competition from newcomers like television, video games, and social media, radio reaches more than 80% of Americans each and every week. This segment right here is a small slice of the complicated, convoluted, and ever-expanding rich tapestry of radio history. Now, you don't have to take notes right now. It's not as if you are a college student, but if you were, this is the kind of thing you might want to take notes about. In the early 1920s, when radio broadcasting was new, you had all sorts of companies and all sorts of businesses starting radio stations, and they were all transmitting on the same frequency. I know, doesn't make a lick of sense to us today, but it made sense at the time because they didn't have regulations to deal with radio broadcasting. So you have all these radio stations broadcasting on the same frequency. They're causing a lot of interference. In 1927, the government finally gets wise. Sometimes it takes the government a little bit of time to figure things out. That's no surprise. In 1927, the government decides to give radio stations their own individual frequencies so they are not all transmitting on the same frequency. That's why KEUN is 1055, okay? Now, KEUN FM doesn't go back to 1927, but that's the idea. Each radio station has its own particular frequency to prevent interference. Now, in exchange for permission to broadcast on a particular frequency, radio stations have agreed to operate in the public interest. That's the deal the government made. The government said, we will give you permission to use a particular frequency and you operate in the public interest, which means you operate in such a way to help your local community. And that's exactly what we do right here on KEUN, try and help out the local community. Now, this obligation doesn't exist for streaming platforms, Spotify, Pandora, Instagram, YouTube, anything like that. They don't have to serve the local community. We do at KEUN. We are obligated to do it, and also we want to do it. We want to serve the community. That's why we bring you all this great, wonderful Cajun music each and every week. And that is what I wanted to share with you about Professor Arsenault's radio history. And as an example of the public interest, let me tell you about the Eunice Food Bank. I was talking to Mary Ann Guillory just the other day, director of the Eunice Food Bank, and she says they need volunteers. They need volunteers, especially people who might be able to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 a.m. to noon. If you're over the age of 18, you can even drive for them. If you got a good record, you could drive, you could deliver stuff, you could pick up stuff. Now, if you're a teenager, you could probably help as well. They'll find other things for you to do. And if you don't have time, maybe you have a refrigerator or an appliance you don't need, and maybe the food bank can use it, or maybe you have money you can donate. I know Marianne Guillory, director of the Eunice Food Bank, would love to hear from you, so reach out and get in touch with them. 337-305-0876. That's 337-305-0876 or 337-457-7541. 337-457-7541. And if you got the Google, if you got an internet machine, you can find the phone number that way. I think it's also listed in the Eunice News. We are going to take a little break, a short break. We got other people who want to share important information with you. And then we're going to come right back. We got lots more great Cajun music. It's going to keep your day going in the right direction. And as the final thing I want to say, or maybe the second final thing I want to say about public interest is this is a incident that happened in Minot, North Dakota. And this is kind of like, it sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but it actually happened. And there was a train accident in Minot, North Dakota. Poison gas is released in the town. North Dakota, not a very very sparsely populated state. Never ever met anyone from North Dakota, but there are people who live there. Poison gas is released downtown Minot, North Dakota. The police and the other authorities want to contact radio stations and say, hey, you need to broadcast alerts telling people don't go downtown. There's poison gas. You could die. They couldn't contact anyone at a single radio station because every radio station was being operated remotely. Every radio station was being controlled by someone somewhere else, or it was on a robotic algorithm. There was no human beings. There was no local control. And this incident, I go to a lot of academic conferences, and this incident comes up over and over again as like the most extreme example of here is what happens when you have local media outlets that are not operating in the public interest. You could have poison gas released and you can't broadcast an alert. That is why it is important to have local control over your media outlets. Now, I know it's kind of funny for me to be talking about local control and public interest for a Louisiana radio station when I record it from San Diego. I actually record it a day or two in advance, but I don't tell people that on the radio. I kind of pretend like I'm in Louisiana. For the sake of time, I'm not going to talk a lot about Spotify and Pandora because I think you guys know more about this stuff than I do. But the way these streaming platforms work is maybe there might be a free version where you have to listen to ads, or maybe there's a premium version. You pay a subscription and you don't have ads, but your stream is customized to you. You know, I like Cajun music. I like the Ramones. I love this band called the Cramps. I think the Cramps are like one of the greatest things that have ever existed, ever. Like Ramones, Cramps, Dead Kennedys, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, Buck Owens. He's pretty good too. White Stripes. Let's put the White Stripes in there, and maybe the Gorillas. Okay, that's Arsenault's stream, right? Your stream of music is going to be different because you pick different things. That's just the way it works. I think it's nice that I can get customized music for me, but it's also nice to be exposed to new things. And it's kind of nice when everyone in town is maybe listening to the same thing, but that's just the way streaming works. And iHeartRadio started its own streaming service. iHeartRadio is one of these big conglomerates that owns many, many radio stations. They have their own streaming service as well, just so that they don't want to cede this new form of listening to newcomers. They want to keep a hand in that as well. Satellite radio, let's see how am I doing on time. It emerged in the early 2000s. There used to be two separate entities, and then the government allowed them to merge. So satellite radio is a monopoly. There's only one company that does satellite radio, at least in the United States. I'm not sure how it is elsewhere. There's only one company that does satellite radio. Why did the government allow a monopoly to emerge? The argument from XM and Sirius was, we are struggling financially. The market isn't big enough for two companies. If you do not allow a monopoly to exist, there will be zero satellite radio. So would you rather have zero satellite radio, or would you rather have satellite radio as another form of media for people to consume and allow it to be controlled by a monopoly? The government said monopoly's fine. But usually the government doesn't like monopolies to exist. Howard Stern was a very popular over the air traditional broadcaster. He's pretty funny, rather vulgar at times, but I can see his appeal. He moved to satellite radio to be free from FCC restrictions so he could do more penis jokes. That's exactly what happened. He's still pretty popular. You do have to pay a subscription. So there are ads on some satellite radio channels. I pay for satellite radio, but primarily it is a subscription based model. It is a subscription based model. It is extremely popular in automobiles. I'm sure some people listen at home, but radio is more popular in automobiles than at home. Satellite radio, even more so. So, in conclusion, for this part of the video lecture, I'm not done yet. I'm not totally done yet. Okay. AM radio comes first. FM is the second form of radio that was invented. Music sounds better on FM. Satellite radio is subscription based. Traditional radio makes its money through advertising. The public interest mandate does not cover online radio. I think I've said that enough now. And the royalty rates for radio vary by platform. First up, we're going to go back, as I like to do, with just a little bit of history. The term podcasting was not invented by Apple. I know, seems surprising. It was not invented by Apple. People took the word iPod, which was very popular at the time, and combined it with broadcasting to give us podcasting. This gentleman right here with the big 1980s hair was a VJ on the cable channel MTV. Maybe you all have heard of that. At one point, it actually did play music videos. Adam Curry was one of the original hosts on MTV back in the day. Okay, after he left MTV, he had a blog, and essentially there was a way to make a blog that was updated automatically with text. There was a way to make it include an audio file. And he realized that this could be done and started doing an audio blog that would update automatically if people had subscribed to it. Now, he wasn't the first person to do it, but he is credited as popularizing the use of the term podcasting and the whole concept of podcasting. So again, he did not create it, but he is associated with making it popular. Now we have in our history of podcasting portion of the video lecture, Serial. This was in 2014. This was part of a larger podcast series known as This American Life. You usually hear that on a public radio station. Serial becomes incredibly popular. This is kind of when I kind of started to get into it, to be totally honest. It set a record at the time for the most downloaded podcast, and it's a true crime thing. It tells the story over several episodes about this young Pakistani guy who got put in jail for convicted of murdering his girlfriend. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. It's a pretty fascinating thing to listen to. There's a lot of stuff about cell phone data and trying to figure out where people were based upon their cell phone location. This put his story back into the public spotlight, and there was a lot of attention to the conviction of this guy, rightful or wrongful. Anyway, but this really set the tone that the true crime genre is closely associated with podcasting. And there's even a TV show, maybe some of y'all have watched it on Hulu, Only Murders in the Building, which riffs off that sort of public association of the true crime genre and podcasting. But it was Serial that really, really established podcasting as a mainstream form of media and also really helped cement that idea, that true crime genre and podcasting. Quick pickup shot I'm doing here, throw this into the video lecture. I already stressed that public radio stations do not have ads for the over-the-air programming. However, podcasts that are produced by different public radio stations, like Serial came out of public radio, they do have ads. That is because the FCC regulations say if you are a legally defined public radio station, one of the defining characteristics is that you don't have ads. That provision doesn't exist for online. So it's kind of interesting, amusing to me anyway, and now you know the distinction. If a public radio station makes a podcast, and they do have a lot of great podcasts, when they put it online, they can put an ad on it, but when it's over the air, there's no ad. Podcasting trends, all right. In 2025, there was this big growth of video podcasts. So when people talk about podcasts, for years, it's always meant audio. Now it could mean video as well. So we're seeing more and more. YouTube is actually overtaken Spotify as the #1 platform for podcast consumption. More people consume podcasts from YouTube than Spotify. More people consume podcasts from YouTube than Spotify. 40% of listeners like to watch the video. I don't want to watch a guy sitting behind a microphone. Okay. I just don't, I like to do things, walk around, walk a little rerun or something, but video podcasts, very, very popular. And I think video podcasts are now even showing up on YouTube and Netflix. Here we have a ranking of top podcasts. This is from the third quarter of 2025. Most recent data that I could find: Joe Rogan Experience, #1. Then we have The Daily from the New York Times, which I listen to. I find the voice incredibly annoying. I think I have a pretty decent voice. I find that voice rather annoying. Then we got a True Crime. Then we got Caller Daddy. I don't know what this one is. True New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce. Is that one of the Taylor Swift guys? Is that what that is? Anyway, whatever. Joe Rogan. Okay. If I ask a question, I might ask about Joe Rogan. That's it. That's the conclusion of this video lecture about new stuff about radio. Covered streaming, covered podcasting, covered public interest. I'm going to play another audio break, DJ break that I just recorded to air in Eunice, Louisiana. I'm just playing it just because I can, but also as an example of when I do this radio thing, even though I'm in California, I go out of my way. I spend 110% of my energy to make it sound as incredibly local as possible. Cajun radio station in Southern Louisiana. So in this break you're going to hear, I make reference to chasing a chicken. That is a big thing they do in the Cajun Mardi Gras, which is different than the New Orleans Mardi Gras. Just chasing a chicken, just know that. And then there's also this reference to pocking eggs, which is something very specific they do in Cajun communities around Easter. And then I put in a little bit of French as well. I don't know French, but I'm trying to learn French because it feels like I should be doing French on the radio. So we're going to end. The questions are done. You can tune out now if you don't want to, but we're going to end with an audio break that Professor Arsenault did, aired February 21st, 2026, Eunice, Louisiana. And I'm trying my hardest to make the station appeal to local listeners and actually serve the local community. 1055 KEUN, en français, 1055. Vous êtes à l'écoute. La Saturday Cajun Music Show avec me, Professor Arsenault. I'm so happy to be here once again. Another glorious Saturday, February 21st, and I have had a couple of days to recover from all the Mardi Gras festivities. Hopefully you've had a little chance to catch up on some sleep as well, maybe drink some water, maybe digest all that food, the cracklins that they were serving and all the other great food they were serving at the corner of Walnut and South 2nd Street there. That was great. I want to acknowledge our friends at the Cajun Friends Music Association, the local Acadiana charter chapter of the CFMA. I know they served up a lot of food, a whole lot of food, during the long Mardi Gras weekend. And I'm happy to support all the work that they do. And they are one of the groups that makes the Saturday Cajun Music Show possible. Also want to acknowledge our friends at Winter Flooring, because without the support of these and other kind people in town, I wouldn't get to come here every Saturday and play you all this great, wonderful Cajun music and share some joy with you. But one bit of sad news is that when I came into work today, my co-host for the last several weeks is gone now. Mr. Chicken is gone. I knew he was going to be gone right after Mardi Gras, but still a little bit sad not to see him here. But I was not expecting Mr. Duck to go into hiding. My co-host, the Duck, is also in hiding. Maybe he is afraid that whatever happened to the chicken is going to happen to him. But I kept telling him I do not have a recipe for duck gumbo, so the Duck was totally fine. There was no reason for him to be scared, but I do have Mr. Bobcat with me. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Bobcat. You are always by my side. I know I can rely on you, Mr. Bobcat, and I definitely do not have a recipe for Bobcat gumbo. Coming up on the show today, we have another song from my friend Zach Fuselier. He's going to be playing one of his songs for us, and giving us some background information on that. Also, we're going to be playing a song by Austin Peete. That's because he was born on February 23rd, 1918. So we're going to use the day to recognize the wonderful music of Austin Peete. Also, Pee Wee Broussard. Now, he was born on February 20th, 1920. So when you hear all the great music today, don't be surprised if you hear some tunes by Pee Wee Broussard. Wow. That is Mr. Bobcat reminding me that it is time for Cajun Prairie weather. Aujourd'hui, samedi, today, Saturday, lots of clouds, temps couvert, high 73, 73. Tomorrow, dimanche, Sunday, sunny, I'm just going to say beaucoup du soleil, high of 61, 61. Monday, sunny again, let's say beaucoup du soleil again, high of 58, 58. But the low, it's actually going to be pretty cold on Monday. They're saying the low of 32, 32. But the good news is that warmer temperatures are coming up next week. According to Monseigneur Daigle in this Learn How to Speak Cajun French book, ça va faire chaud la qui vient semaine. Now, chaud I thought meant hot, but Monseigneur Daigle is telling me it could also mean warm. Basically, it's going to warm up, not going to be quite so cold. And another thing I could say is, c'est le temps du carême. It is the time of Lent. But it is a little bit early to start talking about pocking eggs. We just got done chasing the chicken. Let's just enjoy the sunny weather that's coming up next week. Right now, we're going to get back to the Saturday Cajun Music Show. But first, a little break, just a short break. Why don't you get yourself another second cup of coffee and come on right back? I'll be here.